Starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning or afternoon to everybody. Welcome to the webinar of 7 reasons why value stream integration improves software quality assurance. Matt Anger is going to be giving this webinar. Matt and I are colleagues at TaskTop. I've been there for about close to 4 years, and I've helped a number of companies integrate QC with some other tools. I'm by no means a QC specialist. Matt definitely is. Matt has about 10 years of experience of administering various test programs at a lot of different companies, and he's got deep testing experience, and we brought him to TaskTop for that reason, and now he's helping companies really integrate their value stream, especially when it comes to testing solutions. So today, a couple housekeeping notes. This is being recorded, and the session will be available for playback to all Vivint members. There will be a Q&A, so on your webinar control panel, you'll notice you can type a question in the question chat section, and we will definitely respond to that. We want all the questions we can get. And at 2 points in the webinar, there will be a poll, so you'll have a chance to give us your feedback on how you are handling some testing solutions, and you will also get a chance to see how everyone else on the call is handling their testing solution. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Matt, and he's going to go through the agenda.
Well, thank you, Adam. I appreciate that. And hey, welcome everybody to today's webinar. I appreciate you taking the opportunity to join us and giving me the opportunity to speak to you about some of the experiences I've had in my career around managing testing engagements, and also most recently with the concept of value stream integration. So the title of today's webinar is 7 Reasons Why Value Stream Integration Improves Software Quality Assurance. If you follow Software Test Professional magazine or Software Test Professionals, the website itself, this was a featured article last month. And what I've done is I've kind of converted this into a webinar to help speak about some of the experiences I've had over the course of my career and how it might help you, if you're listening in, to improve the overall quality of your productive environments, whether those are your ERP productive environments or any other software that you're responsible for within your organization. Today, we're going to cover 7 points, and instead of going through each point by point here in the agenda, I'm just going to have you, just take a quick look of what we're going to be speaking about today. I'll give you a quick introduction to each of the points before we get into it. The first point, though, is probably the one where we're going to speak about the most in terms of mechanics, right? The calculation of defect detection percentage. I'm a strong believer in the power of simplicity. Okay, and that's especially truthful as it relates to metrics and key performance indicators, things that upper management can look at and garner insights and make strategic decisions about how they allocate resources, time, and effort throughout an organization to ultimately improve, right, the quality of your productive environments. So with that all being said, I want to take a step back real quick and make sure we're all sort of singing from the same song sheet. Hey, what is value stream integration, and what does it mean to your organization? What does it mean to me? So, I'm an old school kind of quality guy. I started my career as more or less an integration analyst. I was at a company, a consumer products company, very, very large. I won't say the name on this webinar, but that was my first job out of college. And I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to join a team that was implementing SAP. So I cut my teeth right away in early 2000s, joining an SAP implementation team and doing some integration between R3, I think it was 4.7 at the time, 4.7C or something, to Gentran. So I always grew up with the mindset that quality is everybody's responsibility, and Deming said that if you studied it. And what value stream integration is, it's the connection of all the people and the activities in your software delivery tool chain by automating the flow of value from ideation to production. What we're going to talk about today is everything in between, from start to finish. And we're also going to speak to what I like to call the value stream integration mindset and why that's so important to embrace as a quality assurance practitioner in today's day and age. So let's look at a visual, a diagram, a visual. A picture is worth 1,000 words, right? So if you look at this particular diagram, you see that we have a lot of personas involved in today's organization. When I say personas, I'm speaking of individuals and individuals that comprise different departments, from your project managers in your PMO office, all the way down through your operations personnel who are handling help desk activities, incident and problem management, to the folks in between, your development gurus, the people writing the code, your business analysts looking at your requirements and designing your requirements, working hand in hand with your solution architects, or even your testers. You know, the background that I came from, where quality assurance and testing to ensure that you're delivering good, high quality working software to your customers, the folks who sign the purchase orders and the folks who are keeping your business going and strong. But involved with that is not just the people component. People are a very integral component of every value stream, but you also have tools, right? You have a multitude of tools that are working in coordination in conjunction with one another, the best of breed tools in the market today. And you have processes intertwined throughout that. So you have your people, your processes, and your tools that need to work in harmony in order to deliver high quality working software. And in this particular diagram, what you see is those people at the top are the personas and the artifacts that these personas are touching, the artifacts that make up the work that goes into that high quality working software. I'm speaking to the epics that are defined, the features, the user stories, and then the decomposition of those user stories into tasks that make up the individual discrete units of work that must be accomplished by your team in order to build good working software, in order to modify existing features, in order to, do the testing that is necessary. A lot of organizations look at their testing in forms of user stories as well. And also too, your operations personnel that are using tools such as ServiceNow, BMC Remedy, Sharewell to triage trouble tickets, to manage problems and incidents. All of these different tools need to work in coordination to ensure that there's no communication breakdowns between one person, one process, or one tool. Okay? So another important component too is not only do you have the tools working together, but you also have to visualize and see all of this data as it relates to one another. Correlation, trends, everything that it comes to measuring. And I'm only going to speak to one very powerful key performance indicator today known as defect detection percentage upfront, DDP, okay? But as you know, there are a multitude of key performance indicators that you're probably tracking today as a quality assurance and testing manager. And you also have your project managers looking at other metrics that might relate to capacity, resource planning. Your business analysts are tracking other metrics. Your operations personnel are tracking other metrics. Today, we're going to just keep it simple. And I'm going to cut straight to what I feel is probably one of the most relevant to a QA and testing manager. Okay, so before we get to that, I'm sure that a lot of the folks that are listening today have seen the World Quality Report. Micro Focus is extremely involved in the process of surveying organizations across the globe and understanding the pain points that practitioners like you and I have dealt with on a day-to-day basis. It's one thing to speak to theory, right? And it's one thing to, only have an academic viewpoint, but when you marry that with a pragmatic viewpoint, there's power in that. And what I've done here is I've reviewed the World Quality Report, the 9th edition, brought to you by Capgemini, Micro Focus, and Sogeti, and I pulled out some key points that I think are relevant to our conversation here today. And I'm just going to go ahead and read off some of these key points, and then we're going to dive right into the mechanics of DDP. So the survey from 2017 to 2018 indicated that the hybrid agile framework is the new norm, in that organizations adopting a combination of SAFe, Scrum, Kanban, XP, DSDM, and waterfall methods. It's the new norm. It's in varying combination. It's not one delivery methodology. It's not we're agile or we're nothing, or we're DevOps or we're nothing, or we're waterfall or nothing. It's we're taking the best pieces of all the different methodologies and doing what works best for our organization. Okay, it's a tailored approach that they're seeing according to the responses from the surveys. Secondly, 99% of survey respondents say they have difficulties with testing and agile development. So this is extremely worrying, thinking particularly as challenges persist across the board with little change since last year's study from 2016 to 2017. So 99%, let that resonate for a second, 99% of the survey respondents are saying they're still experiencing difficulties. This is with all of the thought leadership, this is with all of the innovation and everything that's still going into it, people are still struggling. So you ask a question, why? Why are people struggling? Are they not tracking the right things? Are they not focused on the right metrics? And that could very well be the answer, and that's what we'll explore today. Another thing is a common challenge among practitioners are difficulties, quote unquote, in identifying the right areas on which test should focus, and early involvement of the testing team in the inception phase or sprint planning. So what does that mean? Knowing what to test with the resources you have is a challenge. And also a challenge is getting your quality assurance team involved in the earliest stages of requirements intake and definition. It's still not happening. There's challenges across the world in accomplishing that. Again, why is that? Is it a lack of the right mindset? Is it a lack of the right tools, the lack of the right people, the lack of the right processes? Those are things we'll explore today as we look through these 7 different reasons why value stream integration improves quality assurance. And last, research shows that there's a large proportion of testing managers like you and I that are lacking the necessary skills in test strategy and design. Yeah, we might know how to build out an automated regression test suite. We know the mechanics of doing this or doing that, but what we're not doing is we're not able to have that eagle's eye view necessary to truly lead our organizations through these challenging and turbulent times. And I believe that understanding a few of the things that I'm going to outline today will give you that eagle's eye view necessary to be a good leader. It's not just being a test manager. You have to be a good leader and be able to communicate the why behind what you're doing. That truly is the fuel that's going to move your organization forward as you progress through these turbulent times. Okay, so let's jump right into it. Defect detection percentage. Let's understand it, okay? Before we get into the details of how to calculate it, take a look at this particular screen and read these questions. How often do you, as a practitioner, get asked these questions? I know I got asked these questions all of the time. It was a constant struggle to be able to answer these effectively as well, because some of the questions are ambiguous. But take a look. How often are you asked these questions by your colleagues, by your counterparts, by upper management, where they look at you and they say, how effective is your regression testing suite? Or, do you know what regression tests to improve based on the bugs that we missed, as an example? Why are there so many incidents in production? You're being asked these questions. People are looking to you to be able to close the gap and to improve upon the quality, right? They have to look to somebody, right? So they're going to look at the quality assurance leader, the testing manager. They're looking at you to help them out, to help identify what to track and what to measure. And we got to make sure everybody's on mute. I don't know if you can go ahead and mute your phone, everybody who's logged in, the moderators and such. Thank you. So let's go ahead and jump into a quick poll here. I want to make sure that I want to see where everybody is at in terms of what they're using today to track your defects and your incidents. So we're going to go ahead and administer the first poll today. So if you could go ahead and take a moment to just respond back and say, do you track your defects and incidents in the same tool? That's what I'm interested in understanding. I'll give it a moment here to see where we're at. Okay, it's exactly what I think too. Most people don't, okay? Most people are not tracking their defects and incidents in the same tool, and that's by design, if you think about it. A lot of vendors in the industry today, their products have evolved from what they specialize in. ITSM tools have evolved and grown, such as ServiceNow, from what they specialized in, problem and incident management, right? So you're probably tracking your incidents in a tool like ServiceNow or Cherwell, right? But your team, on the other hand, has grown up using Quality Center, or ALM.net, or maybe your developers are using Visual Studio or Jira, and you're tracking your defects over there, and that's fine. And another team might be tracking their defects in SharePoint. The point of the matter is this: we're not suggesting that you consolidate within one tool. That's not the suggestion. The suggestion is understand that there are disparities between where you're tracking this pertinent data that needs to be available to create the necessary key performance indicators and to track them appropriately in order to improve upon what you're doing. Okay, so that's the only point I wanted to say here, is to see where you guys are at from an organizational standpoint of where you're tracking this data. The second poll that we have, and let me go ahead and is, do you track defects by test stages? Okay, so that's the second poll that we're going to work with here, and I'm going to go ahead and open that up. Do you track defects by test stages? Test stages, think about it: testing layers, unit testing, system testing, interface testing, user acceptance testing. Those are your test stages. And we're seeing a bulk of the respondents, yes, you are tracking. Good, because we need that metadata. That metadata is necessary, because calculating defect detection percentage isn't just about regression testing to your productive environment. You can actually calculate DDP between testing layers so that you know how effective your unit testing is versus when it's being handed off for, you know, integration testing, or you know how effective your quality assurance team is in doing their particular jobs before your business users are involved in the equation and they start carrying out their user acceptance testing. So it's good that you're tracking that information by test stages. The last question: do you track defects by target release? And this is another thing too. This is another piece of metadata. Target release is that defect, that fix, that the defect is identified, you know, it's going to be triaged by your team, and then you're ultimately going to have to retest it, and it's going to be targeted for a release to be released in. So we want to know if you're targeting that. So we're collecting responses. People are voting. Give it a second here. And the bulk of everybody is saying yes, that they do track. So that's good. So this is good. I think everybody on this call today, the folks that have joined us, most people are ready to start tracking DDP. If you haven't started tracking it yet, you have the necessary components, some of the necessary components. The one thing you might be missing is a mindset of value stream integration and how to tie all these different things together, but we're going to show you how to do it here, okay? So on this next slide, it looks simple, right? I mean, most of the folks joining this call today have probably been through, you know, college level courses on calculus, or, you know, just basic arithmetic, okay? DDP, it's simple from a calculation perspective, yet it's complex, okay? And I say it's complex because oftentimes this data needs to be derived from a multitude of different systems, okay? For each testing stage, whether that be unit, system, integration, UAT, or regression, you're logging defects in your tool of choice, like Micro Focus ALM, Jira, or perhaps even Visual Studio. Eventually, you're going to deploy or release that build into your production environment, but let's face it, you can't test forever. Sooner or later, the business will accept that you have covered all necessary testing scenarios within your application under test, and it's time to release that software to your business or consumers. In other words, it's game time, right, when you release. So let's say that you found 20 defects in the regression testing period or the regression testing stage of your last monthly service pack, and you released it to your production environment on July 1st, okay? On July 1st, your end users throughout the world, right, are working with your software, and naturally they're uncovering and identifying incidents or things that, you know, just don't look right. It might not even be an incident, so you reject them, right? But they're logging those incidents in tools like ServiceNow, Zendesk, Remedy, or even SAP Solution Manager, whatever tool of choice your organization uses for help desk management. Now, fast forward 25 days. It's now July 25th, 2018. In that period of time, your end users identified, let's say, 12 incidents. That's from July 1st to July 25th. So let's take a look at how you can easily calculate DDP based on these inputs, okay? So I just took a few screenshots of my Windows calculator. I'm not a Mac person, I'm a Windows guy. And this is what you see of how I did it. So the simple calculation is this. You take 20 defects found in a regression testing stage. You'll add the defects found in the test stage prior to releasing into production and the incidents found in your incidents logged period, 20 plus 12. That's 32, okay? With some simple division, your DDP for this example is 63%, okay? So 63%, that's what the calculated DDP is. Now, nothing is foolproof. I get that. We can tear apart anything, but I'm going to show you some of the implications in a slide after this. But before we do that, let's give you a visual representation of how this looks, okay? Here's the graphical representation. In this scenario, you deployed the build to production on July 1st. The y-axis on the left tracks both the count of both defects and incidents. In this example, the organization is using Micro Focus ALM to track defects uncovered during the regression testing cycle leading up to the go live date, and ServiceNow for tracking incidents, change requests, and problem management. On the right side, you can see that DDP starts at 0% all the way up to 100%. Notice that your DDP will start at 100% on the day of deployment to your productive environment on July 1st. So as your end users, as they get their hands on the software and start using it, they inevitably are going to encounter incidents. This is what I call the feeding frenzy period. It's like when you throw a bunch of bread in the water, okay, and the ducks are going at it, you know, when you see that feeding frenzy. As your end users consume the new software build, they will go about their daily business of whatever it is that they do, you know, whether they're logging orders, whether they're scheduling shipments, receiving goods, or assembling bill of materials. So inevitably, the changes your team made will inadvertently impact existing functionality, okay? Stuff that you should have picked up with your regression testing cycle, or the new features introduced might not work right. So as incidents are logged, you'll see a gradual dip in your DDP calculation. Notice here, a gradual dip from 100% all the way down to 63% in our fictitious example here. So research and survey results and such indicates that 90% and above is considered an acceptable DDP. Of course, there are a lot of variables to consider when determining an acceptable DDP in your organization. Every company is different. You know, you have manufacturing-centric companies to truly software-defined enterprises that are more advanced, frankly, and how they're tracking different things. So every software application and organization have different thresholds of risk. Stability of the software under test is also a major factor to consider. So what are the implications here? High DDP of 90% plus, it could mean a few things. It could mean, hey, your testing is outstanding. You guys are doing a phenomenal job working through regression testing. Your automated test suite is on point. It's exploring all the different data parameters. It's exposing what it needs to expose to trap defects so that you protect your productive environment. Or on the contrary, it could mean, hey, you have a limited usage of your application under test in a real world scenario during your measurement period. Your measurement period isn't good enough. You know, you had a 25-day period of time that you measured in the middle of the summer. Maybe your business is seasonal and summer is a slow time for you. So these are things you need to consider when you're looking at DDP. Now, on the other end, if you have low DDP, say less than 65%, that's what we were dealing with. We had a 63, I think, here in this example. What could that mean? So that could mean a multitude of different things as well. Perhaps you have ambiguous requirements. What does that mean? Requirements aren't clear. How am I supposed to develop a robust test if I don't really understand what's being built in the software, or I don't understand what's changing? Sure, I'm going to try to test what I can, but half the time it's a shot in the dark. So I have lower quality tests. Or how about lack of quality of your quality assurance and testing team involvement early in the software delivery lifecycle? I was rushed. I wasn't involved early enough to create test cases that were really adequate. I had to throw together test cases at the last minute to cover this feature functionality. And that's why I didn't catch it. And excuses are abound in every situation, I understand, but these are valid reasons, implications. Limited use of data sets for automated regression test cycles. So perhaps you're not using a robust enough data set.
during your regression testing cycles. And what this means is, your ability to trap defects is compromised as a result. What about the inexperience of your team? Maybe your team isn't experienced enough. Maybe you have a new set of quality assurance analysts or testers involved, and you're doing a semblance of exploratory testing. They don't really know what to explore. Maybe they're not. Maybe you need to train or uplift your team. These are all things to consider. And lastly, what about the instability of the software with not enough time to test? That's what we hear a lot. We didn't have enough time. Everything was pushed, and our cycle time was reduced as a result. So these are all things that you should consider when analyzing your DDP. Now, lastly, as it relates to DDP, the convergence is what's important. With value stream integration, defects and incidents can coexist in a centralized data store. If not coexisting in a central data store, you'll need to uncover the count of both types of artifacts across a multitude of different systems in order to calculate DDP. So flowing the data centrally to a data store, like SQL or Oracle, will allow you to report on DDP in real time. Okay, that's what you want. You want the ability to create a report and monitor DDP at the 100% point as it tracks downward during your measurement period. Okay. Now, on the other hand, QA analysts whom are accustomed to using tools like Micro Focus ALM or QA Symphony for logging defects at the various levels, whether it be functional, system integration, regression, or user acceptance testing, they're not going to log into ServiceNow, right, to look at the incidents. Well, they might, but chances are they're not going to. So manually converging and normalizing this data into a centralized data store to calculate this metric as DDP, hey, it's arduous and time consuming without the right enablement technology that facilitates value stream integration. But that's not the only effective use of DDP. Let's talk about swimming upstream like a salmon. My favorite food is salmon. I wish I could eat it more, but it's expensive. The thing about salmon is this: they like to swim upstream. We know that, okay? And as part of root cause analysis, RCA, you have to take many, many steps to understand why did this breakdown occur. Many causes contribute to defects and incidents. You see the symptoms in your testing, which is, defects and things that go awry. The symptoms are also evident in your productive environment with incidents being uncovered. There's a lot of different causes to those problems. Swimming upstream as part of value stream integration, by tying your tools together and your people and your processes together across everything that you're using in your organization, it allows you to identify so many different things. Think about peeling back each layer of an onion until you get to the core of the onion. It takes a while, right? It takes a while to understand the true essence of that onion. The same thing applies to root cause analysis. You have a responsibility to take it one step at a time. And one step at a time means traversing different systems. You might have to jump from ServiceNow over to Micro Focus ALM.net. You might have to perhaps even jump up into a higher level system, such as a PPM system that your team is using to look at the original initiatives that were outlined by your PMO. Where did the breakdown occur? So that's the question that you have to continually ask yourself. What happened? Where was the breakdown? Was there a miscommunication between team members? Was there somebody not doing their job, so to speak, and communicating the right things to somebody else? These are things not to point fingers, but things to understand so that you can improve. And our responsibilities as quality assurance practitioners is to suggest improvements along this continuum, because at the end of the day, we are responsible, everybody is responsible for the quality of their organization, and also the product, the software product that our customers ultimately consume, okay? Now, what I showed today was a conceptual viewpoint of defect detection percentage. I want to invite you, everybody on the call, to join TaskTop on August 22nd at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can register at tasktop.com or point your URL or your browser to the URL at the bottom of this screen. We're going to have a deep dive session into DDP, and we're going to actually show DDP calculation in real time. We're going to build a report for you. We're going to show you data flowing from Micro Focus ALM.net and ServiceNow into a centralized data store. And we're also going to give away a free ebook So our team has created an ebook on how to implement and measure defect detection percentage within your organization. All the registrants will receive an ebook for joining us on August 22nd at 11 a.m. Okay. So please go ahead and register, point your browser to taskstop.com, or go ahead and point your browser here to webinars.devops.com and join us on August 22nd. Okay, so number 2, VSI, it eliminates QA as an afterthought activity for software releases. An afterthought activity, okay, so building, as a quality assurance and testing manager, you're building QA and your testing brand. You're building a business, if you think about it, within another business. And it's a key component of protecting your organization's flagship software. You are the cheerleader, you are the advocate, you are the proponent, you are the one within your organization speaking to the value of quality assurance and testing. Since most companies are software-defined enterprises today, it's important to elevate your QA brand throughout the organization. So when you have a multitude of tools working together, you can use a simple yet effective metric like DDP to tie teams and tools together. But remember, it's not about just tying tools together. The real power, it comes from tying teams together who can collectively monitor trends and take decisive action. So that's the power of value stream integration across your organization. What's more is that the profile of QA and testing is often elevated when organizations embrace value stream integration as a core component to how they deliver working software. There are so many useful QA metrics and reports available today, but how many executives are actually going to take the time to review each of them? In the course of my career, there's been so many times I was in a position of publishing metrics, constantly publishing metrics. Oftentimes they just sat in the SharePoint folder, or they weren't really looked at unless something went wrong, right? But DDP, if you think about it, it's simple, it's powerful. You can track it over the course of time to see how you're doing and if you're getting better. And it's simple enough where an executive can pull it up and use it as a key marker to see where we're at on any given release. And it answers a fundamental question around how are we doing? How are we doing? It helps eliminate the watermelon phenomenon. If you've heard of it, green on the outside, red on the inside, right? Oftentimes when someone asks you, how are you doing? You say, I'm doing great. Little do they know, beneath the skin level, there's a lot of other stuff going on. So when you go look into that watermelon, there's a lot of red everywhere. But if someone asks me an ambiguous question, I'll give them an ambiguous answer. But if you give them a metric that they can look at and you explain this metric to them, as I'm doing to you today, of what this really means to them, then they can look at the metric and understand what's happening. And if they so choose, go ahead and peel back the onion a little bit. I have some deeper metrics available for you if you want to get into more specific reasons. So to this point, value stream integration, diagram time, upstream visibility. What does this mean? Giving your QA team a seat at the table. Okay. How many times have you seen your solution architects working together in a room with your business analysts, defining the features of those epics that were given to them by the business? You have your product owners dealing with your scrum masters. They're working back and forth to hear the voice of the business, and then you have your business analysts working in coordination with everybody, kind of laying out the features and the user stories. But then testing is kind of like an afterthought. Right? What if you could have a seat at the table too? It might not be physically at the table, because you might be a decentralized team, right? You might be somewhere else, your team might be located somewhere else, but at least to have visibility into the product and what's happening upstream. That's what value stream integration does. It gives the testers, if they're working within Micro Focus ALM.net, maybe they want to have be able to see what those requirements are being developed in a tool like Jama, and that those artifacts will flow immediately into ALM.net, so they can start working on those high-level testing scenarios and get a head start on what they're going to have to create at a later point. It's all about getting an early view or an early glimpse into things, and that truly increases confidence and morale from what I've experienced on different teams I've worked on. Okay. Number 3, effective change impact analysis, control, and management of change requests. Hey, things are going to change. It's we live in an ever-evolving world, and that certainly applies to software quality assurance and testing. So let's take a quick poll. Where do you change, or where do you track change requests today? I'm interested to see. Okay, results are coming in. I'm seeing a lot of folks actually, about half, are tracking them both in an ITSM and ALM tool, not just within ITSM. Some folks are tracking them in Microsoft Excel, okay, which we see a lot. That's about expected, about a 50-50 split between ITSM and ALM. Okay, let's go on to the next question. Do you trace those change requests back to the original requirement? And when I say trace, I mean the link it back. So when you're looking at the change request, do you look at all those original requirements and say, this change request is going to affect this particular requirement up here? And a lot of times we see organizations that try to, but it often involves a lot of qualitative inputs or subject matter expertise from the team to do so. So think about it in that respect. When you're creating a change request, are you looking at what original requirement that was already defined as part of that project is going to have to change as a result? I guess the question must have been confusing. I'm not getting a lot of feedback on that particular one, but the last webinar we did on this topic, a lot of folks said no, because there was a big disconnect between, getting that necessary subject matter expertise or that SME input to understand what original requirement was going to be changed as a result. So there's often a gap with that particular process there, if you will. Okay, so let's take a look at a diagram here of an integration pattern, as we call it, in terms of value stream integration and how tracking change requests back to originating requirements would work. And let's talk through a few examples of how that would work. And I see that there's a quick question here. Okay, so how this would work is this. So think about it in this vein. If you're working with some of the popular tools on the market, the best of breed tools today, and you're logging change requests or incidents into those particular tools, you want to be able to trace those without having to manually export those CRs and import them into another tool. Value stream integration is about automating those handoffs between these different tools so that those CRs will show up where they need to show up within the upstream tool, if you will. And then at that particular point, you can identify the original or the originating requirement for that CR and make the linkage. What that does, it not only does it make a linkage, but you're asking, why would I link that, Matt? Is that just for the sake of linking? I mean, because I'm not going to do something just for the sake of doing it. That is contrary to lean thinking. I agree with you. The point of the matter of linking the CR back to the originating requirement is so that you have insight into what associated test cases may also need to be updated or changed as a result of that change request. Does that make sense? So that would be the linkage from the change request to the originating requirements. You can see what test cases as a result would need to change. This also aids in risk-based quality management as well, if you think about it, because going into the future, you're going to have more insight and visibility in order to calculate where your testing is the riskiest as a result of many, many changes that have occurred over the course of time. The more you change something, the more risk you introduce to it, okay? Now, cross-platform artifact alerting eliminates redundancy and efficiency. So this is what I was just explaining. The ripple effect occurs. Change request flows in here. I change the requirement there, and the associated test cases, therefore, could be impacted as a result. So, internalizing a viewpoint, a simplistic viewpoint like this, really helps you to underscore the concept of value stream thinking, okay? Think about it. You have to know, and I'm sure you realize this, you hear it all the time, especially in the world economy. Any kind of, announcement or any kind of shift or an announcement of one country going to war with another, or what have you, and there's a ripple effect that occurs. The same thing occurs with artifacts flowing through your different systems. Ripple effects occur, and you need to know where those ripples are heading to, okay? And embracing the value stream integration mindset helps you to identify where those ripples are going to end up. And that is, related to this as well, having an integration pattern between your tests and your business analysts. Okay, and what this means is giving your business analysts the ability to understand what test in another system is going to be associated with this requirement that I'm responsible for as a business analyst to cover it appropriately. And then on the flip side, on the reverse, the tester can see what requirement is going to be associated to this test. So you can swim upstream or downstream. And this is in the whole spirit of working together collaboratively as a team to make sure that quality is at the highest level. Hence, quality is everybody's responsibility. And number 5, shifting left contains cost while also aiding in root cause analysis. Hey, I am going to be the first person to tell you I'm so tired of saying shifting left. It's been overused, but it is still a very valid concept. Shifting left is really, all about identifying defects early on in your software development lifecycle. Why? You can contain costs. It's a lot cheaper. And it's logic, it's common sense. You fix something earlier in the software development lifecycle, it costs you about a third of what it would cost if you identified it in your productive environment, okay? Now, there is a yin and yang of software quality assurance. That yin and yang is prevention versus detection, okay? Detection is a big business. It's big business. It's big business for the tools that are out there. It's big business for consultants like me over the years that, this is where I made my living. I was in the modus of operandum of detection. I would find bugs, whether through building an automated regression test suite, doing exploratory manual testing, overseeing system integration testing, user acceptance testing. However, what I've learned over the years is I was unbalanced. I was an unbalanced individual in my approach to quality assurance and testing. And ultimately the organizations that I served were not getting the full essence of me because I didn't have a balanced view. Later in my career, I've learned how to balance my view because you think about it, you have to marry preventative techniques with detective techniques, and that's where the yin and yang comes into play. So in my mind, value stream integration, this mindset that I'm speaking about today, it helps you to introduce preventative techniques. It helps you to bring balance into your life as a quality assurance and testing individual or practitioner. It gives you line of sight upstream to prevent ambiguity of requirements, okay? Now, one last thing I want to talk about on this slide is communication failures. We see it all the time, and I consider this one of the root causes of defects. Communication failures between people, whether it's a discussion between a developer to developer, or a manager to a developer, or a developer to a tester, or an executive to a department head. The one piece of critical information that I can suggest to the folks listening today is when you're in a conversation with somebody about a critical piece of feature functionality that you're both working on together, reaffirm what you understand to that person when you're speaking to them. If they say, do you understand, does that make sense? And you say, yes, it makes sense. Of course you're gonna say yes. You don't wanna appear as if you don't comprehend things people are telling you, right? There's an element of ego in every conversation as well. You wanna appear that you're firing on all cylinders. But the other person that has asked you that question should say, repeat to me what you understand so that we can affirm together that we're on the same page. Doing that will ensure that whatever you're building together is of the highest quality. Just a simple suggestion to follow and to take into account as your teams work through highly complex scenarios together. Number 6, reducing the ping pong effect. Ping pong is great if you're Forrest Gump, okay? Forrest Gump is great at ping pong. We don't want ping pong between developers and testers. We don't want that, okay? We want first time defect logged. The developer knows exactly how to recreate that defect in the evidence and the trail of events that has led up to the creation of that defect, okay? That's how they fix the defect. That's how we move on and retest the defect and move it ahead. The developer tester integration pattern between different tools is a component of value stream integration that is going to eliminate this ping pong effect. Okay, the burden of proof, this is the evidence that's attached to a defect, is very real. The struggle is real, right? You've heard that saying. The evidence has to be there. We have to see the proof is in the pudding. So the proof is the attachments and the videos and the evidence and the data set that was used to identify the defect. That is going to go up to your development team so that they can recreate it and move on so that you can fix things, okay? And here, you know, picture's worth 1,000 words. We see the same integration pattern between developers and testers. Critical that you have this worked out appropriately within your organization, okay? Number 7, and this is the last one. One size doesn't fit all. It just simply does not fit all. And in my fundamental years, I was a proponent of testing centers of excellence, okay? These are top-bottom approaches. It's a fallacy. It's something that I have learned to, I've made mistakes in my career just like everybody else, and I'm fully admit to when I do make mistakes. This line of thinking does not work in today's day and age. What is changing, what is shifting, it's even evident within the World Quality Report and the research that Micro Focus has done. Testing centers of excellence are being replaced with testing excellence centers. So it's more or less a servant leader approach that you go around organizations. It's kind of like the Scrum Master mentality, right? You're a servant leader, but the testing excellence centers enable your teams to select best of breed tools, okay? If you have a value stream integration mindset, this approach works, okay? If you don't have a value stream integration mindset, this approach won't work because you won't be able to incorporate all these different best of breed tools within your organization, okay? So I hope all of this, these 7 tips helped you out today. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to me. We have about 10 minutes left to the top of the hour. I'm gonna go ahead and turn this back over to Adam. Adam's gonna give a quick overview. We have some exciting things coming up here for Vivint. Micro Focus in particular is holding us a cybersecurity summit 2018 in Washington, D.C. from September 25th to the 27th. It's a phenomenal event. We encourage you to go. These PowerPoint slides are going to be released to you so that you can get the registration link and you can be sure to use your Vivint member link as well to sign up for this. I hope to see you there. There's going to be some Tastopians there representing our organization and Vivint at the same time. So definitely check it out, Cybersecurity Summit. You can register online. We'll send you the link after this call. And we also have a number of upcoming Vivint webinars starting on August 6th. Be sure to mark your calendar. A lot of exciting action-packed information coming your way. We have another SIG talk speaking about OpenStack Cloud and SUSE integration on September 13th. Another webinar we have about 4 steps to achieving a data-driven culture using TotalView Analytics for ALM. So there's different products out there that are available to you to achieve, more of a data-driven culture. We invite you to join these, and we also ask that you do complete a short survey. And the survey link is going to be included in the email, the short survey after the webinar ends, and we'd love your feedback. And just a final reminder that this on-demand recording, everything today was recorded. The slide deck's going to be posted to the Vivint website in the next few days, and you're going to receive an email with those links, okay? Adam, I'll turn it over to you to thank everybody, and I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you again.
Yeah, and let's answer a couple of questions from the audience, and feel free, audience members, to send in your questions if you haven't had a chance to. But here's a question. We don't hear much about DDP as a DevOps type of measurement. Can you explain why this metric hasn't come up often in conversations around DevOps?
I can. So I became a fan of DDP probably circa 2011, 2012 timeframe. I was in a role that, interestingly enough, used both ServiceNow and ALM.net for quality assurance and testing. And I had several testing coordinators on my team that were handling the labor-intensive activities of extracting data from both of these systems to create the DDP metric manually. on a day-to-day basis. This was arduous, it was time consuming, and it became, you know, something that wasn't sustainable over the long term. So I stopped tracking DDP at that particular time because it was too arduous, it was too time consuming, even though there was great value in doing it. So my belief is this. My belief is that DDP hasn't been embraced throughout different organizations to the level that it should be, because it's not an easy metric from a data input perspective. It's an easy metric to calculate if you're looking at defect detection percentage, arithmetically, if that's a word. But you know, calculation wise, it's easy, but from a data input perspective, it's not. And the question also too, from a DevOps perspective, why I haven't heard a lot about it. Look, there's a lot of metrics that are calculated, and you can, I don't know, you've probably heard of it, you know, paralysis from analysis. I mean, I've developed a lot of metric strategies for organizations, but it related squarely around quality assurance and testing. You know, from a DevOps perspective, I was never a DevOps type of, you know, guru or anything like that in the industry. I mean, I'm learning as we go, but my fundamentals really squarely center upon quality assurance and testing. But my feeling is eventually that this metric will be considered it will have a seat at the table, in my opinion, at some point. Thanks, Adam.
Yeah, and I think we've got one more here. Do your methods apply to agile teams? Our Scrum teams are trained to avoid too much talk about process in favor of personal interactions. With the value stream integration mindset focused mainly around tools, does this fly in the face of the agile principles we're learning?
Oh, wow, that is a great question. Yeah, look, I'm a huge proponent of, you know, interactions, people, as opposed to following just process for the sake of following process and, you know, throwing a tool at a situation and saying this is going to solve all of our problems. Let's implement this tool and it's going to be utopia. That's not the case, right? We know that. So here's the thing that I answer these types of questions with. So value stream integration is not just about the tools. Value stream integration is really about, and this is just my personal opinion from what I see, it's more or less the orchestration or the balance of three different things: people, process, and tools. And it really is delivered or materialized. It comes to fruition when you have the correct mindset of how these people are going to work together. But if you think about it, you can't separate the people from the tools always. There's going to be tools that people are going to use. It's like taking a carpenter and removing his tool belt. I mean, he's pretty much useless without his tool belt. And he's also useless without his colleagues and his other carpenter friends that are helping him build this house. He's useless. You know, the house can't be done unless you have someone specialty or specialized in plumbing, and then you have your electrician, you have your roofer and everything. You all have to work in harmony together. And to me, value stream integration is about thinking about the different interlinkages and components of how people, process, and tools work in harmony together to accomplish an end result. And an end result, in my mind, you know, I'm thinking, I have a biased perspective, I guess, because I'm a quality assurance person, but I'm all about higher quality software. I know we have to hit the speed markers, and everyone's focused on that. How fast can we get this new commit to our productive environment? I understand speed is of utmost importance, time to market. We need to stay ahead of the competition, but you could cut your nose off to spite your face if you focus on speed too much. So what I'm suggesting is you can have your cake and eat it too, but you need to look at your foundational aspects. And that to me is value stream integration. That's really your foundation of how we ensure both speed and quality. It's not a tool, it's not a unified platform, it's your mindset of how you're working together, and it's not taking away from what Agile brings to the table. Agile is the mindset of Scrum and Agile is paramount to any organization, large and small, from lean startups to huge organizations. Where companies tend to fall down, from what I've seen, is when they try to start scaling Agile. The principles of Agile are simple when you're dealing with a two-man operation that's developed a software as a service product, as an example, in the industry and has launched it. I can practice Agile all day with a few different people. Where it comes down, where it breaks down, is scaling it across an organization. That's where you see the problems. And embracing, a value stream integration mindset helps to mitigate those problems of scaling Agile across organizations. Thanks, Adam.
Yeah, great. So I think we've talked about, we've got a couple of upcoming Vivit webinars and the big cybersecurity Summit 2018, which is coming up on September 25th in Washington, D.C. I want to mention that one more time. And of course, you can watch this recording online, as there was a lot of information that you might want to go back and focus in on or pass around to some colleagues. So that will be available on the Vivit website. And I think that will conclude today's webinar.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for your time. I appreciate it.